Keep Right with Ralph K. Ginorio. Parasitic Democrats then and now. Given their record over the past 2 centuries, the pretensions of today's Democrat Party to be anti-racist, diversity-oriented, and defenders of the common person are utterly laughable. Since its inception, the Democrat Party has employed divide-and-conquer tactics to siphon value from the nation's citizens to reward their faction. Democrats then and now are parasites through and through. In their earliest phase, Democrats declared themselves to be champions for both the urban poor that controlled most northern cities and the rural slaveholding class that dominated the South. They squared the mutually contradictory positions that such different factions demanded by being unreservedly pragmatic. Ideals would be used as tools to acquire power, rather than power being a means to implement ideals. Democrats are the only political party to have ever ruled this nation in a one-party system, the so-called 1820s era of good feeling. Following this, the only American president to wield genuinely dictatorial power was Democrat Andrew Jackson in the 1830s. From the early 19th through now in the early 21st centuries, the National Democrat Party has promulgated policies that have financially rewarded the city bosses who have operated and still operate their urban political machines. Spoils and patronage skewed every public contract, all government hiring, and the creation and application of the government's regulatory power for over 200 years. Before the American Civil War, Democrats both in the North and in the South vigorously defended the institution of slavery. Their efforts preserved slavery for decades after it would otherwise have been abandoned due to the nature of the Industrial Revolution. In the height of their power, Democrats established that every slave would be counted as three-fifths of a person for the purposes of determining congressional apportionment and electoral college districts. Human chattels bloated the census population figures in southern states, even though such slaves were legally considered to be livestock. These slaves could not vote or exercise any other basic human right. However, their very presence enhanced the political power of their owners. Under the Jim Crow laws that were established after federal troops left the South in the 1870s, black people were reduced to what is generously described as second-class citizenship. Yet their population figures continued to profit Democrat districts, where, despite the Constitution, only white people could vote in practice. This only changed because of Republican votes for a rogue Democrat president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and his Civil Rights Law of 1964, which was signed over the opposition of many other Democrats. Democrats once wrought these travesties of human misery to give their faction maximum profit. They still do. The very same arguments employed by Democrats in favor of chattel slavery before 1865 and for Jim Crow from the 1870s through the 1960s are now being employed by Democrats in favor of our nation being swamped by tens of millions of illegal aliens. Heretofore, they have managed to twist the U.S. Census into including illegal aliens in the population figures of today's slave states, the so-called sanctuaries. As slaves and their descendants were once used to empower Democrats, illegal aliens today illegitimately grant much greater congressional apportionment and electoral college clout to Democrat strongholds. In these matters, the Democrat Party is not merely a mute witness to some kind of unavoidable social distress. They created and perpetuate such misery because first the slaves, then the second-class black citizens under Jim Crow, and today the illegal aliens grant them power. Since the 1970s, Democrats have increasingly benefited from more federal welfare aid going to their districts because their poverty figures were enhanced by the plight of unacculturated illegal aliens. Their presence also granted these areas an unfair population boost by including non-citizens in their census data, even without illegal aliens trying to which has happened repeatedly. Their unlawful presence harms our election integrity. The Democrats' long-term goal is to sooner or later, by any means necessary, grant these invaders some form of permanent citizenship. They hope that such aliens and their descendants will, over the long term, lack the skills and cultural literacy that they will require to succeed as individuals. They would therefore require welfare benefits in perpetuity. Those who depend on Democrat welfare can be trusted to blindly vote Democrat. The 10 to 20 million illegal aliens who are already here within our borders could grant Democrats unassailable power over the United States. Once again, Democrats would rule a one-party state. Slavery began. Jim Crow continued, and illegal aliens today perpetuate this shameful and hypocritical exploitation. Support President Trump's efforts to conduct a new census that does not include illegal aliens in any of its calculations. Help us take our country back, not from the exploited victims of the Democrats, but from the parasitical Democrats themselves. Thank you for considering this. Take care.